Here I am getting stabbed in the back on the streets of New York. I was assistant director, wrote some additional dialogue and even shot the original poster cover for Abel Ferrara's first feature movie Driller Killer, but many of my credits on the internet are for Louis Mascolo, Knife Victim. My 15 minutes of filmic fame lasted only 15 seconds. The success of Driller Killer has always amazed me. Although it was successful from the start in America, it caused a major controversy when it arrived in Britain and was classified in the new video nasties genre. The uncut version wasn't available there until 2002. It was banned in Germany altogether. Foreign musicians especially loved it. A Swedish punk band named themselves Driller Killer after it. Here's a snippet. My wife and I attended the premiere of Driller Killer at a movie theater in Times Square in 1979. The theater went dark, and in gigantic text on the screen, it said, "Play this movie loud," and they did. Decades ago, I assumed I had worked on a violent, schlocky, ambling, soon-to-be-forgotten, B-movie. Boy was I wrong. It hasn't been forgotten. Apparently, its many fans don't share my view, and because of its popularity, I am writing this historical account on how I met Abel Ferrara and how the events leading up to and including the shooting of the film came about for its many aficionados and film buffs. New York City in the late 70s wasn't anything like the Disney theme park it's turned out to be today. It was seedy, gritty, and in the throes of an economic crisis.
In '77, Son of Sam was running around and shooting people. Everybody was scared to death.
In 1977, we had soaring murder rates. We had a city that was really gripped with every form of crime.
The city was dirty. It was experiencing an epidemic of arson. It was covered in graffiti.
The city drove 5,000 cops.
They closed firehouses. They laid off thousands of teachers.
People were confused, disillusioned, afraid. All of these emotions were spawning all kinds of music.
That was the year that disco exploded in New York.
1977 was a big year for punk rock.
There was a buzz at CBGB's. Everybody wanted to sign punk bands.
It was no coincidence that during this period of really kind of ultimate decay for New York, it was an incredibly exciting place to be.
It was free, it was open, you felt like you could do anything you wanted.
Most people thought that New York City's great days were over. My attitude was, fuck 'em.
When asked for help, United States President Ford told New York City to drop dead. That's right, President of the United States told it to drop dead. My wife and I lived in an 8-story old industrial building that had been converted into lofts. I had recently graduated from NYU School of the Arts where I got my degree in directing and communications, and that was my workshop. I converted his film screening room into a 60-seat loft theater, and produced and directed my shows there. We lived on the 3rd floor. Abel Ferrara lived on the 6th, and we ran into each other frequently and became friendly. He was incredibly personable and was one of those charismatic people you just liked being around. He made you smile, and you always wondered what he was up to. In any case, one day in 1976, the doors of the elevator to our loft opened, and he walked in and asked me if I wanted to go with him to see his new porno movie, 9 Lives of a Wet Pussy, that was being screened in Times Square. He was the star. Sure, I said, and went to the film with him. Sometime later he came to me and asked me if I wanted to work on his new film The Driller Killer. I had done student films, but this was a real-life feature. I was pretty excited about it. He took me up to his loft where he screened clips from The Driller Killer that he had already shot. He explained that the way he pitched financing for the film was to put together a trailer for investors to take a look at. Since he didn't know how long it would take to get the funding, he would play the star, Reno Miller. He couldn't be sure any actor he hired would be around when shooting time came around, so he didn't want to waste the footage. He knew I was directing plays at my theater and wanted me to give him notes on his performance and also act as his assistant director. Once the financing was secured, I got a call from him telling me they were going to begin shooting in NYC. My wife and I had left the city by that time to start our family, but I packed up my bags and headed back up to Manhattan and camped out in Abel's loft, as did a couple other of the crew. Behind the camera was director of photography, Ken Kelsch, a tall, well-built guy. Where most DPs are artistic types and tend to be on the fey side, this guy looked like he was out of a mercenary magazine. He regularly brought in his two nasty Dobermans to the set and tied them next to the camera. Nobody was going to mess with his stuff. We needed a dead rabbit for one of the scenes and he took a live one, went to the bathroom and came back with a dead one. It didn't bother him. Mary Kane was the production manager, who looked like a librarian and watched over the nickels and dimes as well as the progress of the shoot. She was the most regular person of the group. She went on to do quite a few major gigs, including recently Inventing Anna. She worked on over 20 episodes of Chicago Med and all of Abel's films including Fear City and The King of New York. Nikki St. John, the writer, stopped in from time to time, but wasn't a regular. He wrote many of Abel's scripts including Driller Killer, Ms. 45, and Fear City. From what I could tell, Joe Delia, who wrote and edited the soundtrack and served as soundman, was one of Abel's closest friends. He did the scoring for most of Ferrara's later films. He is best known for his long-running collaborations with Abel on films like Ms. 45, King of New York, Bad Lieutenant, Body Snatchers, and Zeros and Ones. By far the most admired guy on the set was David E. Smith, who went by the moniker Dick Smith Jr. for Driller Killer. He is the son of the highly respected Dick Smith, special effects guru, who worked on The Godfather Part 1 and 2 and Taxi Driver. David brought with him his father's secret blood formula, which was used on Driller Killer. Dick Jr. created the famous drill in the forehead scene, which Europe found most repulsive and which is highlighted on DVD covers and posters. He created that scene by placing phony flesh over a blood bag on top of a metal plate so the drill wouldn't puncture the actor's head. He went on to do special effects for Pulp Fiction, Shallow Hal, Adaptation, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Species 2, Jackass the Movie and many more. The leading female role went to Carolyn Mars, who played Carol Slaughter. She was a pretty woman, with decent acting skills. She was very reliable and, with no experience, did an admirable job. Baby Day was a skinny blonde, with pouty lips, whose behavior caused me to pull out a ton of my then very thick hair. Abel took me aside and told me, on screen, you can't take your eyes off her. She's worth the effort. Tony Coca-Cola was played by Doug Metrov. He is also listed as the producer of the film. We shot a lot of the movie in his loft. He always had an entourage with him, and they seemed to all be very hip, cutting-edge New York City guys. Abel loved this gang and gave them a lot of play in the film, and he was a regular on the set. He went on to write several movies including Solar Babies. I brought a few NYU actors to the shoot. My friend, Steve Singer, played a bit part as a street bum. When he showed up we mistook him for a real derelict. Here's his big scene.
Excuse me, but I gotta sleep, you know what I mean?
I also brought another NYU friend with me. Harry Schultz, who played the art dealer, Dalton Briggs, the guy who gave a scathing lambasting to Reno's Buffalo painting and wound up drilled to a door. It was pretty much a bunch of amateurs with everyone pitching and doing whatever was necessary to get the film in the can. Abel shot it on Super 16mm, which allowed us a lot of latitude and freedom as far as getting to locations, setting up, and shooting. After editing, it was transferred to 35mm for the theaters. Aside from Doug's loft, we spent most of the time on the streets of NYC in the middle of the night in nooks and crannies. Shooting at a bus stop, on a fire escape, or at the pier without a permit, wherever, and always looking over our shoulders for someone who could chase us away. As any filmmaker will tell you, the city is its own invaluable character. If you have an interior shot, there are always friends or shop owners to let you use their place as film set just to be in a movie. You can find an art gallery, a punk rock club, or a loft. I would love to know what Abel told the priest so he could shoot a bloody horror movie in his church in Little Italy. After an endless 3 weeks, we ended shooting and said our goodbyes. The next time I saw Abel was at the premiere of the film in the city. It was fun to watch, but I wasn't impressed. The point I missed was that Driller Killer was in perfect sync with the chaos and turmoil that was going on all around us in New York City at the time. Final result was that Abel shot a low-budget porno, which gave people enough confidence to give him the cash for a low-budget horror film, which turned into a career of filmmaking so that he could work with stars like Christopher Walken, Tom Berenger, Harvey Keitel, Madonna, Isabella Rossellini, and many more film stars. Abel's later films quickly became mainstream like The King of New York.
I got a $250,000 contract on anyone.
Christopher Walken, King of New York.
And The Bad Lieutenant.
Own choice as the best discovery of the Cannes Film Festival.
Come on, give us a break.
You do something for me and I'll do something for you. What do you say about that?
Bad Lieutenant.
What else you say, Mr. Badass Phil?
About a year after The Driller Killer, Abel called and asked me if I wanted to work on his next film, Ms. 45. Many of the same people who worked on Driller Killer stayed with him. Unfortunately, our first child arrived, and I got a job teaching high school, so I had to pass. Financial reality trumped ambition. By the way, that black and white shot of Abel with the drill that appears in a few of the posters, that's my shot. I took it and did the solarizing effect. Just a note. The narration you're hearing isn't real, which is why it sounds fake. It's an artificial reading. My apologies. My voice wasn't good enough. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and you are definitely invited to check out my free entertaining newsletter blog, Loose Place. The link is at the bottom of this video. Feel free to comment. Your feedback is always appreciated.